Alchemy. It's the process of turning useless crap into gold. But of course, it never actually works, so you just end up with a ruined pile of garbage and no gold at all. So in some ways, I can't think of a more appropriate name for Wizards' newest format.
And I'm your favorite Magic Channel's favorite Magic Channel. Best believe that the professor go bananas for my deck tech.
What's up, Wizards? It's Dev. Mtg, we like it a magic. We really, I promise you, we really do. Despite everything going on in the world, we like it a magic. And I've decided to stop nervously staring at my camera for the past 20 minutes and actually hit record. As usual, when I sit down in the lab for these, let's have a talk videos, I'm really nervous, because usually I got something to say, and today is absolutely no different. But despite the first thing I said at the beginning of this video, I think a lot of people are going to have the initial idea that, I must absolutely hate this and everything about it. But stay tuned, because I think I'm going to end up doing what I always do in these videos, which is to make everyone mad. I wonder why my channel doesn't get as many views as it used to. It's probably because I'm not as mad as people expect me to be about a lot of stuff. And again, this situation is no different. I've already received messages on Twitter from 2 different people that say they're deleting their Arena accounts because of this decision. And I'm just not there. I think it's not the best decision in the world, but I'm not there. And we'll talk about why. Both of those things in this video. Now, a lot of you have been adding me on Twitter and stuff. How do you feel about this? What are you thinking? But as you know, if you've seen any of these talkie videos before, and I'm sorry that I always have to do this disclaimer during these, but I think it's important this time around that I do it for this particular subject. I like to wait for at least 24 hours before I do one of these opinion pieces, mostly because I think reactionary content is the death of mankind in a lot of ways. The death of online content at the very least. But there's this perception that your knee-jerk, first instinct is your best instinct, and it's literally the exact opposite of that. It's true, right? Your first reaction to a thing is often going to be lizard brain and based on emotion like fear or anger, right? So I think that if you want to form an insightful or thoughtful opinion on a thing, it's best to sleep on it, wait, think about it for 24 hours, ponder your orb, right? Absorb other people's opinions, I've never thought about it that way. That's a good point. And then come to a conclusion rather than arriving at your conclusion immediately. I just think this is the smarter way to do things. Again, as a result, people seem to be mad at me for not being mad enough some of the time, and I think this is going to be one of those videos. But what even is this that I'm talking about? What are we, 4 minutes in, and you don't even know what this video is about? How are you still here? Thank you. This is Alchemy, just so you know, is a brand new format coming to the Mtg Arena that is basically standard, but also not standard. For people who do have no idea what I'm talking about, I think this image helps sum things up a little bit while still only giving you about 30% of the information you need because, so Wizards we're talking about. Alchemy is a new digital-first format. That's a phrase, isn't it? Digital-first format launching on Magic the Gathering Arena December 9th, 2021. That's next week. Get ready for that. Alchemy includes all standard sets and rotates when standard does. But, and just like your mom, that's a big but, Alchemy will regularly rebalance cards. Alchemy will incorporate digital-only mechanics, and even though it doesn't say this, and it kind of follows and stands to reason, it will also incorporate digital-only cards. More on that in a second. And Alchemy will add supplemental cards with each premier set. Alchemy is not replacing anything. Standard will continue to exist. This might as well be in flashing red text. Alchemy is not replacing anything. Standard will continue to exist on Arena and be aligned with the paper format. Nerds, owning a rebalanced card, it might, again, I'm not saying that, it might as well say that. They're really trying to mitigate a lot of damage with that sentence. And finally, in this image, owning a rebalanced card gives you every version of that card. So again, that is nowhere near the amount of information that you actually need. Basically, some cards are going to be rebalanced. That means some cards are going to get better, and more importantly, I think to a lot of people's minds, some cards are going to get worse, although not a whole lot worse. Well, again, we'll talk about that in just a second. I think, right off the bat, that something that I'm still sort of, is upset the right word? Something that I'm having trouble coming to terms with, probably the kindest way I can say it, right, is that not only are they rebalancing cards, honestly, the rebalancing cards thing, I'm let's go. It's kind of a neat idea. I do think it gives them some disincentive to actually balance standard. And we've heard announcements before in the past where they didn't ban stuff that we all thought they needed to be banned. Where again, they may have well as just added the word nerds at the end of some of the sentences, right? Like we've heard a lot of justifications for like not doing a thing about standard because, we feel like people play a lot of games on Arena. Standard fatigue sets in faster, and since people are banging out so many games, it feels like this card needs to be banned. But in the paper world, these interactions aren't happening as often, and therefore, it's not as bad as you think. Person who uses our product 8 hours a day, we're going to somehow use the argument that you play so much that you've lost perspective, even though you would think playing more games actually gives you a better perspective on what needs to be fixed in standard, but you guys are all just a bunch of nerds. That's how some of these announcements have sort of come across to me in the past. So again, it sort of seems like they're saying like, oh, we'll rebalance things for the Arena players. But come on, we reasonable adults can all agree that nothing really needs to be fixed about standard, right? But anywho, verged into a rant in and of itself for a second there. Sorry about that. I struggle to be a patient, kind, reasonable person, but even by giving them a lot of benefit of the doubt, there's still some ways they phrase things in certain announcements over the past year or two here that make me think they're throwing shade at the people who use their product the most, which is like kind of amazing. But yeah, you could easily make the argument, and I don't think it's overly cynical, that this does disincentivize them from actually doing things that may need to be done in a lot of players' eyes about the standard environment. Like, oh, you don't like that standard environment? Just play this. Just play this. That's another thing that it sort of worries me is I don't really have up front, before we really get into the weeds of it here, up front I really don't have any problem with this format simply existing, even in the way that it does, and we'll talk about that in a second. What I have a problem with is the idea that Wizards might like push this format to the moon. This is the way we play Magic now, and that's a bit of an issue. But I will say that there's a lot of people saying that this is the end of Magic as we know it. And that may be true. That may actually be true. But I would put it this way. We need to remember that as we know it is a part of that sentence. Magic as we know it has ended like 5 times just in the last few years. I mean, Commander didn't exist to the point that it exists now 10 years ago. It was a thing. Commander was a thing, but Commander is probably the most played casual way to play Magic at this point. And that simply wasn't the case 10 years ago, but Commander got a foothold into Magic, and now it's a huge part of our game. Commander is basically a completely accepted format that tons of Magic players play. Tons. I would argue there are far more Commander players than there are Modern players. Right? So, probably. So, the way we played Magic changed from those days onward. Same things happened when when Arena became a thing in the first place. Just having a digital client to play Magic on that was much slicker and aesthetic than MTGO, at least. Again, changed Magic as we knew it. Magic as we knew it ended, but Magic itself didn't end, and we're all still here, at least most of us. If anybody's got a right to be mad at Arena, I do. Around when do you think my views started slipping? It's like literally around the time Arena came out. A lot of people who make traditionally paper content and deck techs and stuff started seeing a massive drop-off in views. You'd think it would have gone the other direction, but it didn't. Instead, the new crop of content creators is all people who focused almost solely on gameplay, right? So if anybody's got a reason to be mad at like that era of Magic ending, it's me. And I'm still pretty raw about like the all paper Magic era ending, but how I play Magic now is almost entirely digital. So I'm not really mad at Arena for existing, and I'm not mad at this format for existing. But if they push it to the point where like not only is besides Commander, the only real way to play Arena or Magic is Magic Arena. Not only that, but this format is like the premier way to play on Arena, and they again push it through the moon. They support it. I wouldn't mind some support tournament wise for this format, but like if it becomes the way to organize tournaments, like I have some real issues with that possible outcome. But my main issue here, and this seems disorganized, but I'm just trying to put all my thoughts out there. I really wanted to say this before I got on to the whole as we know it bit. But I think that's actually a really important part of the video that I wanted to put closer to the beginning to make sure that people saw it. Magic as we know it has ended so many times in my lifetime. I've been playing Magic for 26 years, and Magic as we know it has ended like a million times. I was around for the reserve list, guys. Magic as we know it has ended like 10 times in my Magic life, and we're still playing Magic. So I just thought that was important. You know, Magic will change, but things change, right? I'm not really a traditionalist. I tend to embrace modernity in most cases. So, you know, things are going to change, and we're still going to get to play Magic, and if you still want to play Standard, you can. And if the pandemic and Magic Arena before that didn't keep your F&M from firing, I'm pretty sure your F&M will still fire, even with Alchemy being a thing. So, like, if you're playing paper Magic and you're worried that paper Magic is going to completely die because of this format, I'm not sure yet that that is a valid concern, but I can see why you have that concern. But anyway, what I was going to say before I cut myself off again to talk about the thing I already said was my big problem with this isn't the rebalanced cards. Not necessarily. I think it's actually kind of a cool territory to explore. It's more the digital only cards. I already complain a lot. If you've seen me stream, you know that the thing that I get like the saltiest about, and again, I try to be a very patient, kind person, and I think I do better than a lot of people. I really do. But when it comes to digital only cards in my standard, I don't care for it. So I just don't instinctually, and I can't keep myself from not liking, like, Hallowed Priest being in my format. Like, Hallowed Priest is a decent card, but it's not in standard. It's not a standard legal card. Why do I have to play against Hallowed Priest? And I wouldn't care if, like, these cards were just entirely unplayable, but Hallowed Priest is playable along with a couple of other cards, Soul Mender in the white deck, the life gain decks. So these cards just always, like, bother me by their very existence. But those are in standard, right? The digital only cards are only going to be in Alchemy. And from what we've seen of the digital only cards so far, let me put it this way. The digital only cards do not look like, so far at least, don't look like they're going to be like game breaking in such a way that they usurp the power level of anything going on in standard. A lot of the digital mechanics they look to be putting on cards are ways to do mostly random things that you couldn't really replicate in real life. And that's not, a lot of people are just going to hate that just on principle. It's not that I hate that about it. It's that I think the random aspects are, first of all, just irritating on a base level. But at the same time, I don't think that because a lot of these digital only mechanics are so random, I don't think they would work very well on any tournament table in the world. So I don't necessarily have a problem with a format with digital only cards existing. I don't. My problem, I think, is the mixing of these two ideas. These seem like two independent ideas, right? Like, oh, cards in standard need rebalancing every now and again. We can do that on a digital client, so let's try that. That might be fun. Keep standard fresh and all that. We don't have to make any drastic decisions about paper Magic standard, right? We can just like fix things here and there, tinker with it, and see what happens. I think that's a cool idea. And again, I've just said, like, I'm not entirely adverse to a format that includes digital exclusives. I don't know why you have to slam them together into the same thing. Sometimes it's fun to be able to explore design space you wouldn't be able to in paper. So, like, again, digital only cards, I just want to say, like, not a big deal so long as they're not in my standard, and these aren't, right? But I also want to try, like, really badly. Like, I'm super on board with the idea of rebalance cards. And I really want to try that, but I don't want to try that while also having to deal with a bunch of cards that I will never encounter on a table. But so again, most of the Magic I play is digital, but I still want to play standard. I want to play standard. I don't want to play with digital exclusives, but I do want to play with altered Alrund's Epiphany, or against it. I want to play against altered Essika's Chariot, against altered Luminarch Aspirant. In case you haven't seen some of these cards, I'm not going to go over any of the new cards in this video, but I am going to do like a spoiler video tomorrow. Now look, I know I should have addressed this at the beginning of the video. Patrons, you voted for how to build Dollhouse of Horrors. Like, and it was supposed to come out on Thursday, but then this happened on Thursday. They dropped this on Thursday, so I like to postpone the Dollhouse video. Dollhouse video is probably going to come out Sunday or Monday. But in the meantime, I wanted to go ahead and address this content. So we're doing this today, and then in the next day or two, I'll be doing kind of a spoiler type video on all of the new digital exclusives and stuff that are going to be in this set. So I'm not going to talk about the new stuff today, but I do want to talk about some of the ways they've rebalanced cards, right? Like Alrund's Epiphany, in case you haven't seen this. Now the Foretold version also costs 7 mana, and you only get the birds if you foretold it. Esika's Chariot doesn't give you 2 cats, it only gives you 1 cat, but it only crews for 2. The rest of the cards the same. Luminarch Aspirant no longer gives you the counter on your combat stat, it gives it to you at instep. And a lot of people are saying that's not a huge change to the card. I actually think that's a key change to the card. Not getting it on your first combat step, not immediately getting a power out of it is kind of important. And it not affecting, your next combat step is also pretty important. So I actually think this change is somewhat important to this card. But the other cards, Esika's Chariot not getting you 2 cats, that's also a pretty big one too that a lot of people are downplaying, like it's not a big deal. But the big problem with the Esika's Chariot, like I was just saying the last time I talked to you, was that it creates too much value. You sweep the cats, you keep the chariot, you kill the chariot, you keep 2 cats, which is way too much onboard value. This way, it's not doing that so much. And again, that's like the problem with the Esika's Chariot. It gives you 3 things on the board. So I like that about the card. I really do. I don't think you should have reduced its crew cost, but still, I think that does help balance the card. Alrund's Epiphany is still just a good Magic card. Like, no matter what, I think they should have somehow nerfed this even more. Because I don't think, obviously, the problem with that analysis is that their goal here is not to render the decks with these cards unplayable. It's just to balance things a little bit more, which I'm into. But we'll see if those balances are enough to change standard, make it feel different, whatever. The problem with that is, let's say these tiny little balance patches and some of the cards that they buffed, which we'll talk about in a second, are enough to make standard a fun, engaging, fresh environment, no more staleness, things feel good again. Oh yeah, but again, it's not standard. It's these cards, but also a bunch of digital exclusives, which... Did you really fix the problem? Did you fix the problem of standard being stale? When your format, it just isn't standard. It's got a bunch of digital cards that aren't in standard. Did you fix the problem by doing that? I don't think so. But yeah, Omnath also received a little nerf, and he's back. You can play this. You can play this both in Alchemy and Historic, which is a weird change, by the way. Let's address that for a second. This is another thing. I was just saying, I don't know why you have to do both of these things in the same format at the same time. Who's that for? I also don't really understand why all of the nerfed cards and all the buffed cards are playable in Historic. You can't play the original versions of the cards in Historic. You can only play the altered versions of the card in Historic. I have no idea why this affects Historic. I do not know why they made that decision. Seems dumb to me, in case you want my opinion on that. There's actually a little lightning round of things I need to give my opinion on, because people are going to ask about them. And there's things people are most upset about. That's one of them. I don't know why they're touching your format Historic players. I don't... It's dumb. I think that's super dumb. I really don't know why they're doing that. I guess the other big one is wild cards, right? When they let's say you love this card, Luminarch Aspirant. Or no, let's not do that actually. Let's just say that they print a new card that's awesome, and you want to craft 4 of it the first day and play it in Alchemy because you like Alchemy and you like this new card. So you craft 4 the first day, and they're all mythic. Then, 3 weeks later, they nerf the card that you craft 4 mythics of in Alchemy. What happens? Nothing. You don't get wild cards back, loser. Why do you expect a thing? No, you can't dust cards. Our economy is garbage on purpose. What do you think this is? So yeah, you won't get, if they nerf your card that you were super excited about playing, you don't get anything, which I think is dumb. Now, I kind of understand Wizards' perspective that you can still play the card in Standard. You can still play the original unaltered version of the card in Standard, but what if my favorite format is Historic? What if my favorite format is Alchemy, and I'm excited about this card and I opted in on it, right? I don't know that you have to give people an entire card. I don't know that you have to give people a whole wild card, but give people some gems and make it worth it. Don't do the thing where you give people 20 gems It makes me so mad. Like, the minimum gems for any action, like any reward, should be at least 50. Don't at me on that, but it should honestly be more than 50. But 20 gems is a slap in the face for a reward, if you want my honest opinion. But, you know, instead of giving people a wild card, give them like 150, 200 gems, which I know is way more than Wizards will ever give them for that. But give them something, 1,000 gold so they can go buy a pack, right? Like, that's 1/6 of a wild card, right? Maybe you give people half a wild card. You give them 3,000 gold per card that gets nerfed, and then they can buy half of a wild card in packs. Like, it's you gotta give them something. You've got to give people something for that. So in the end, and are we already wrapping this thing up? I mean, I could talk about this for like an hour and a half, but I think it's not in any of our best interest to do that. I think it's probably best to kind of keep things tight. Now we'll obviously be talking more about this format in the coming days, so you'll get the content, don't worry. But how do I feel about this? You know, do I like it? Do I hate it? Do I just not like it? Am I indifferent? What, right? Well, I would like the ability to like this. And again, whether you like it or don't is going to be entirely subjective. So, like, agree or don't with my reasons for feeling the way that I do. We're all people, right? Right. So, in the end, I think it's important that we can still play standard if we want to. I think that's good. I don't think this kills Paper Magic any more than anything else that was supposed to kill Paper Magic. But do I think this increases the likelihood of that future where we're in a digital-only landscape and there's no Paper Magic? Being realistic, and I think this is realistic, I think that cynics are always going to think that they're being realistic. You know, that they're the true pragmatists in the room. But I think that an optimist viewpoint can sometimes be very realistic, and I think this is one of those times where the majority of Magic is actually played casually, and a lot of Magic players never even see any online content of any kind, right? You got a ton of Magic players in the world who will buy a box from Amazon, or they'll buy some product from Walmart, or they'll go to their LGS and they'll buy product, like you should. And then they come home, and for the night or for the weekend or whatever, they sort through stuff and they open up stuff and they play with their friends with pre-constructed decks, or, you know, they take cards that they've had for 10 years and mix them together with cards that they just got, and there's no regard to a format, and they just play casually with whatever's in their collection against one another. That is how the majority of Magic is actually played, by casual players. Aside from that, there's also the Commander player base, which I don't think is ever going away. The most devoted of all the Magic player bases, and I don't even think that's closed. I think Commander will be played until the end of time, even past the possible end of physical Magic cards being printed. We will still see paper Commander being played in perpetuity. So, will paper Magic die as a result of this? No, I don't think so. Will standard Paper Magic die as a result of this? More likely. I can't say it's not more likely. It is more likely, but still, probably not. Like, not even a worldwide pandemic could fully kill Paper Magic, right? There are people on Zoom playing Commander on their webcams and stuff. And, like, in a way, that's beautiful. At this point, I might be getting rambly. I'm just trying to make sure that you kind of understand my feelings about this. I'm not as mad as I was about it the other day, and I'm never going to be as mad as people online who are like, this is it. I'm done with everything. I'm just not that kind of person. I am in some ways, you know, when it comes to certain real world injustices in the legal system, right? When it comes to systemic or racial injustice, when it comes to, you know, homophobia, transphobia, and I'm not trying to get too political here, but when it comes to, like, real world things we can get mad about because they affect people in a macro sense, I get plenty angry about plenty of subjects, and I stay mad about them because I think it's important to do so when you're really passionate about something that is causing strife to people in the real world. But I guess when it comes to Magic the Gathering, a game that's been a crutch of mine emotionally, right? It helps my anxiety, which I have. It helps my ADHD, which I have. It helps me to focus. I know I'm not the most focused Magic player in the world, but you should see me when I'm not playing Magic. I owe a lot to Magic. I owe my very livelihood to Magic, but it's still very hard for me to get intensely upset about anything that happens in a card game when there's just so much more. If you want to channel your anger into a productive thing, there are a million other things. And I know that probably made a lot of people super mad that I said that just now. But again, I find the older I get, the harder it is to be incensed about things that happen in the world of Magic the Gathering, especially when I've lived through so many things that have not killed Magic. And don't get me wrong, I'll be streaming this every now and again, like whenever they rebalance cards, buff things, nerf things, put out new cards, because it's fun to play with new cards. People seem to forget that. Like, I know it's going to be digital only stuff, and it's going to kind of be lame, but it's fun to play with new cards, right? At least there's that, so... We will be streaming this from time to time, but don't worry, you're not losing me. I'm still going to be a standard content creator by and large. And like, if you see like a standard deck tech that I put out, or like a dank jank or something like that, that can be easily ported over into Alchemy. So like, I just, as a content creator, I don't think this changes much in the way of the kind of content that I will by and large create. And I think it's going to be the same way for most content creators. And looking at it purely as a player, I'll say again, new cards are fun to play with, and rebalances are fun and make standard feel less stale, which is literally what I was complaining about in our last video. So I guess in a lot of ways I am excited about this, but there's like a part of me, and I think this is true of a lot of you. Again, I'm not calling anyone out specifically. It's just like, there's a part of me that doesn't want to like it. You know, there's a part of me that's just like, oh, digital only stuff. Oh, they're gonna mess with cards rather than make the bans or changes that need to be made in standard. Or, oh, this just allows them to make, you know, overpowered cards and not have to care. This makes it to where they don't have to play test or, you know, design cards perfectly the first time, because if a card is messed up and takes over standard, all they really have to do is nerf it on Alchemy, and like that's going to be good enough for them. You know, like I think that there are valid arguments on the I hate this side of the fence, but at the same time, I think there's enough things about this that I like that I'm trying to push down the side of me that says this is awful. And you know, a lot of the concerns that I sort of have on a reactionary level about why it's awful, I think are just that. They're reactionary concerns. Again, there are valid concerns, there are valid complaints, but when it comes to, you know, certain things about, oh, this is going to kill Magic forever, and I hate this because I hate digital cards, and this is a paper game, it can never be a digital game, we're not Hearthstone, like that, I think is actually an unreasonable, primitive like part of me that's not like logical or rational in any way. So I would rather embrace the things about this that I like and attempt to, you know, be an adult and push aside the unrational parts of me that hate certain parts of this. But again, I'm not saying that there aren't real concerns about this. So if there are, you know, if you're feeling more the side of you that hates this, right? But there is a part of you somewhere in there that's thinking, new cards. You know, I mean, rebalances. I am interested in a rebalance standard. I don't like standard right now, to be honest, and this isn't the way to fix it, but I am interested in rebalance cards. Like this, if that's even a part of you, then give it a chance. Give it a chance and see how you like it. You know, I didn't think I was going to like Brussels sprouts. I freaking love Brussels sprouts. They're delicious. You know, at least give it a chance before you just have this like guttural, immediate, instinctual, I hate this kind of attitude. Because I think there are things to embrace about this. And if the things that make you push it away the most are this sort of traditionalist, you know, like I want things to stay the way they are kind of attitude, then I don't think that's not like understandable. I think it's completely understandable, but I also think that that's not necessarily as important as a lot of us, you know, make it out to be. I don't think that we need to stress like keeping the game the way it always has been. And I want my standard, my paper, and this messes everything up. First of all, I'm not sure this does mess everything up. You can still play standard, whatever. And second of all, it's just a new way to play, man. Like try it. And I'm keeping an open mind about this, and if I enjoy it, I enjoy it. I'm not going to keep myself from enjoying it because the caveman side of me is like, no, you can't like it. What's the point in that? Where's the joy in that, right? So I'm going to give it a chance, and I think it's important to keep an open mind about stuff like this. So if 3 years goes by and paper magic literally doesn't exist because they actually like just stop printing cards in paper and the sky falls, you can say I was wrong. You can say I was wrong, but I don't think there's anything that's going to keep them from printing paper magic cards because it's actually not that expensive. It makes them a ridiculous amount of money, so I don't see that happening anytime soon. Just let me know how you felt about all this in the comment section, and I am like legitimately apologetic if anybody got upset at this. I know that the meta is such that most YouTubers would be like, I'm not sorry if I made you mad, and because I hate the meta. I hate the YouTube meta. Just the content creator meta is such that like you can never be sorry for anything. That's so stupid. It's teaching again the downfall of mankind, and really just tying the video together with that. But if anything, I think that part of the point of any of these opinion videos is to like just be laid back and take a reasoned approach to things, because like I'm just not sure what getting super upset about Magic the Gathering helps. Again, you'll get likes and you'll get people in the comment section like, yeah, brother, I'm just as mad as you are. Let's take something down. I don't do this for clicks, like so you'll like me, you know. I just do me, like, you know what I mean. I think a lot of people respect that. But all in all, like if you're upset about this, let me know down there in the comments section. If there's something that I just completely missed the mark on, like take wise, like let me know down there, because I'm still, even after 48 hours of looking through sort of how this is affecting the community, the barometer, if you will, I'm still like obviously like open to arguments from all sides here. If you hate it, let me know. If you love it, let me know down there in the comments section. Just let me know how you feel, because it's like an extension of the Twitter poll that I did the other day. I want to know how the community at large is taking this. So far, it seems like it's mostly negative, but it also seems like after a couple of days of thinking about it, maybe people will change their opinions, although I highly doubt it. But a couple of days out since we've gotten the announcement, let me know how you now feel about, are you opening up to it when you were initially resistant, or the other way around, were you at first like, yes, and then somebody said something that gave you some insight and you were like, oh yeah, that's awful. Like, let me know down there. I usually say this during spoiler season, but right now, during big announcements like this, I think it's really important that we put our heads together, and I've seen a lot of people dividing over this, which I don't think we should do. I've seen a lot of people calling other people like magic boomers and paper boomers because like they're upset by this, and I don't think that's productive, like, at all. It's just an ad hominem attack that I just don't think, again, accomplishes anything at all. Like, when you call somebody like a paper boomer over this, you're basically saying like, oh, you're someone who is invested in the game, has been playing for a very long time, and have an insightful opinion on this because you've been so invested in this game for so much of your life. It's obviously a very important thing to you, and I'm going to just reduce all of that to an insult, right? Like, it's just not doing anyone any favors to be going around calling people paper boomers for like legit concerns they have for this. So again, I think it's important that we put our heads together and like actually talk this out. I want to know how you feel, whether you're in favor or against, right? Because I don't think any of us have rightfully absorbed information, like all the information there is to absorb from everybody on this, whether it supports how we feel about it or is against it. Because it's important. It is important to absorb information that goes against your point of view. Did you know that? It's important. Anyway, just let me know how you felt about it, and then do any of this stuff if you want to. You can watch us play Magic on the Twitch.com if you want to. My light is blinking on my camera. That means I'm almost out of SD card space, which means this video is like an hour and a half long. How is that possible? Lots to talk about. Did a lot of takes, too, to make sure that I worded things the way I wanted to. But this still probably came out, like, super messy. But if you want to support the content over there on Patreon, it's just $1 a month to vote on what decks and stuff we do. We will get around to Dollhouse of Horrors, I promise you. But this is pretty big. I need to talk about this. You can follow me on Twitter if you want. Takes. But aside from that, I got to get out of here. I got to edit this video. I had no idea we were at, like, an hour and a half. At least of raw time. Which means this video is probably like 45 minutes. Are you still here? Thanks if you are. Wow, thanks, guys. But just do all the YouTube stuff, like, sub for more content like this. And I will catch you cats later. I am Dev from the place, and there's no way I have said all I intend to say on this subject. I know I missed something huge. We'll be back. But anyway, I love you guys. I'm Dev from the place. Thanks for watching, Wizards. Spread love and be kind.